Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guests and I each pick a film that's related in some shape or form. And hopefully, by the end of this episode, you have two films to go check out. And what a disaster this episode's going to be because we have The Towering Inferno and Airport. And joining me is my buddy Luke. Luke, thank you so much for coming on.
Always a blast, Shane. Always a blast.
Well, sometimes I know you talk about the towering inferno that is the world right now on your show. Well, let's
Mm-hmm.
talk about this towering inferno that
Mm-hmm.
released in 1974. And at the opening party of a colossal San Francisco skyscraper, a massive fire breaks out due to careless building practices by the contractor, threatening to destroy the tower and everyone inside. This is directed by John Guillermin, starring, let's see, we'll be back in 5 minutes after I'm done
Yes.
reading the cast list. We got Paul Newman, Steve McQueen, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, Fred Astaire, Richard Chamberlain, Susan Blakely, O.J. Simpson, Jennifer Jones, Robert Vaughn, Robert Wagner, Susan Flannery, and more coming to you in this giant, fancy ass tower that is on fire because capitalism. But Luke, what are your thoughts on the Towering Inferno?
So my general thoughts are, I enjoyed it fine. I think I did enjoy it slightly better than the movie we're going to discuss next. That's for sure,
Hmm.
because of all the Hollywood star power, because of the special effects of I really like the camera. I really like the story. My main gripe, and I think we're gonna talk about it soon, it's just the length and how certain scenes, instead of being tense, they kind of overstay their welcome a tiny bit, and it's quite a few of them. But I did like overall pretty decent, old-fashioned Hollywood disaster movie. What did you think, Shane?
My initial thought is it kind of makes me happy that a film like this,
Mm-hmm.
very genre film, this is indeed a disaster movie,
Oh yeah.
got a lot of love from the Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
This was back in the day when, the film The Towering Inferno could get nominated for Best Picture,
Yep.
where on paper, this is the equivalent to San Andreas,
Or
starring,
skyscraper.
or Skyscraper, all starring Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yes.
Um, but this film did win Best Cinematography, Best Film Editing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I agree with that one. Uh, um, Best Song, which was interesting. This was nominated for Best Picture, but
Mm-hmm.
like this was up against The Godfather Part 2, Chinatown. So like
Yeah,
that's wild.
it
Fred
is.
Astaire was nominated for an Oscar. And for score, which this was John Williams,
Hmm.
which is which those are the things like the technical aspects, the production design was great. The like this looked like a really cool like building to start, and then as it was like deteriorating looked really intense and cool looking.
Oh yeah.
The music builds up good tension, but yes, this is a 2 hour and 45 minute movie, and in the immortal words of Alan Tudyk from Knocked Up, we're
Hmm.
not telling you to lose weight, we can't legally do that, we just need you to be tighter.
Yes.
So like most of these scenes could have been tighter.
Yes.
And I wish this was a video podcast so at least you could see tighter as I'm making hand gestures. But
Hmm.
this film does get long in the tooth after a while. No matter how much you care about the characters, no matter how much the star power is fantastic and the effects, it's just this is long. It feels long. Like second act into the third act, I'm like, okay. Because like this is probably like the third time I've watched this, and I do
Hmm.
really enjoy this movie. I own this. I
Yeah, me too.
already own this.
Hmm.
And it's just, yeah, it could have been tighter.
Like,
Um, Go
even
ahead.
starts with a helicopter, like with the Paul Newman arriving by a
Yeah.
helicopter, and we see that entire ride as like obviously as credits roll, so at least like we're not just watching that, but
Mhm.
that entire ride is like 7 minutes, and it's like like this music and a helicopter, and I'm like, okay, we get it.
Like it could have been like him arriving and walking through the building with the
Yes.
credits still rolling and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect example of film that wants to take its time.
Oh yeah.
It takes its time. Audiences didn't mind back then. They
Mm-hmm.
sat their asses through the Ten Commandments and
Mm-hmm.
Ben Hur. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
2 hours and 45 minutes. This is like
Breeze.
90 minutes.
That's it.
Um,
Yeah.
but uh, people complain about how long movies are now. They didn't live back then.
Nope.
But I just feel like I love the cast, first off,
Mm-hmm.
because like they're none of these character like there's the vast majority of these are not big characters. So
Mm-hmm.
like they don't have like big personalities. There's a couple that stand out, Fred Astaire being this grifter,
Mm-hmm.
this charming grifter, Richard Chamberlain being
Oh
a
yeah.
complete and utter piece of shit. To be perfectly honest. But like they really lean on star power to bring like charisma and character to these
Mm-hmm.
characters, but I think they work. Like Paul Newman's, like I
Charismatic
think
as fuck.
I feel
Just
like it's impossible to not be interesting being
yep.
a character performed by Paul Newman. So
Mm-hmm.
like obviously he has a lot of conviction and he's like us commentating on like how the hell could you do this
Yep.
throughout the whole entire film. Steve McQueen as like the fire chief. Love Steve McQueen. This is honestly he didn't have that many films after this, which is sad.
Mm-hmm.
um I love William Holden, and he's like kind of the morally gray character in the movie because
Is he?
like it's well I feel like on some level you have to take some responsibility
Mm-hmm.
for like because like he's at least mournful
Yeah.
and just like I can't believe I let this happen kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. But like this dude completely ostriched, stuck his head in the sand, and let Richard Chamberlain's character just be a complete and utter dick. And I think it was important in the film that Richard Chamberlain called him out on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like as morally gray as this movie can get, I feel like he's kind of in the middle.
I was gonna say yes, opposed to his or like is mirrored by his son-in-law. Yes, he definitely is
Yeah,
more in the gray area. But like I did like that scene where he is like, "Well, why did you save the money? Because you told me to save $2 million 2 years ago. Well, how did you think that happened?" So it's like yeah.
that that is certainly calling rich people out for being ignorant to how much things cost.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just like, where do you think I saved $2 million? It's like
Yep.
this all comes from somewhere.
And I think he even says specifically on like electrical like insulation or something like that. So it's like directly like he is
Literally
responsible.
directly
Yes.
resulted in this.
Like you can tell the son-in-law is like spineless. Well, I'll say the C-word. I'll say cunt. Like he's a spineless cunt.
Yes.
But I don't think he would have made this decision if he didn't have the go-ahead of his father-in-law, who is footing the bill for this building,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
So I did like that at least it's not just we have one super duper villain, the son-in-law, and we have one that's kind of a villain, but he at least is as you said, like remorseful, like he feels some sort of remorse for his actions and then tries to do as best as he can, as save as many people as he can during the movie.
because he regrets it. And he
Mm-hmm.
eventually like I think he eventually accepts his
Yeah.
responsibility in it because at the beginning he certainly did it.
No.
And
Yeah.
he was certainly acting like the mayor from Jaws at the
Well,
beginning.
yeah.
He's
The
like,
party must go on. Yes.
yeah, do we really need to cancel this party on a
Yep.
fire that's how many floors away? Yeah, yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So and like you have like Faye Dunaway, that one scene with Robert Vaughn
Mm-hmm.
and that woman who he's having an affair with
Oh
getting
yeah.
caught in the fire and like them lighting on fire. I'm like, holy crap. Like that's what those were some serious stunts they were doing with the flames and stuff like that.
Not only the stunts, but I'm actually happy you brought it up because that was one of my points. I really enjoyed, and this is gonna sound strange, but deal with me for a second. How brutal this movie sometimes got. Like, you see some of these deaths, and they come out of nowhere. Like, there's this couple, and they're like
Yeah.
how like she basically yeets out of a window on fire, and it's like and it's shot from distance, and you just see the torso like falling. There's another scene with a
He
firefighter, like they
pulls a
are like in a shaft.
Denethor
Yep.
from Lord of the Rings.
And there is like a shaft scene, like in they are like an elevator shaft, and suddenly we see just like flaming body of a fire, with a firefighter uniform. It's like, oh, that's one of our guys, and he just like fell down, and just. So I did kind of appreciate that like rawness of that. I was like, oh damn, people are dying left, right, and center, right?
Well, and that big visceral finale with all the water flooding in,
Yep, yep.
that was rough.
Many
Um,
other people die there. Yeah.
Gregory Sierra,
Mm-hmm.
particular Carlos, the bartender,
Yep.
that was brutal. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, holy crap. And that's the thing. This does not pull punches when
No.
it comes to showing that. And I think that the film's important that it
Mm-hmm.
has to do that, so this doesn't feel silly. Like there's
Yes.
real weight to this, and they do some daring things with like the elevator or that like cart on the zip
Mm-hmm.
line,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody had to ruin it. Which I appreciate that this movie shows humanity acting like humanity,
Mm-hmm.
being selfish and making bad decisions, because like people would totally do this. And anytime I hear anybody ever complain about people acting too stupid during a crisis, the pandemic happened.
I was gonna say,
um
yeah.
we got a front row seat to how reckless people can act in certain situations, and there's some reckless actions
Mm-hmm.
in this movie for sure. But no, like from a technical standpoint, all the design, the costuming, the music, that all really works. It's
Mm-hmm.
just this movie, there's probably, and I'm even just being trying to be nice, there's like a 2 hour 20, 2 hour 15-minute cut that you could probably make out of this, because to be fair, there are a lot of characters too that they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
balance. This is like a Robert Altman movie.
Yeah.
uh this is Nashville in a skyscraper.
Like you don't even need to cut like I see like I wrote written in my letterbox review there is a great 110 120 minute movie hidden in a plain sight, and I don't even think you need to cut characters. I genuinely think like there's a scene with Paul Newman and when he's saving the mom and the two kids, right? And then the stairway collapses, and then there's like I think like 10 or 15 minutes of them trying to climb that down. And what starts as a like tense moment, they're like, oh, they are still climbing, and it's been how long? And I feel like if you just still like cut like the middle part, like like here and there, like chew the like cut the fat here and there, here and there, here and there, like a tiny bit here, tiny bit there, tiny bit here, tiny bit there, like you can still keep all the characters, and you can still have all your Hollywood prestige, all the Hollywood stars and all that, and have a much better, or not much better, much tighter movie. Like,
Mhm.
let's not forget, you said all the praises. You said how many Oscars it won. This was the number one grossing movie of 1974.
Yeah,
That's fucking insane. Imagine
people,
Skyscraper being that.
this went out and made money.
Oh yeah.
And this, this was the same year as Godfather Part 2. Like The
Mm-hmm.
Godfather was the highest grossing film like
Yep.
2 years before this.
Yep.
Um, but like this film is a big
Mm-hmm.
popcorn kind of movie
Yes.
that's anchored by a lot of really talented actors that bring some weight. This is like if St. Andreas had like George Clooney and Brad Pitt and
Yes.
all the like literally like well now I have to think about from today's standards because they're not really um neither of them are really like in the forefront of like the biggest actors. Like this is be like we have our new crop of young actors. Like if they get Florence Pugh, Saoirse Ronan, Timothy Chalamet, Austin
Zendaya.
Butler, Zendaya, all of them to be in a
Hmm.
disaster movie together.
Well, Christopher Nolan's working on it. It's gonna be called Odyssey. So hey,
Yeah,
like he's getting all the hot young people in one movie. So yet again.
and a whole bunch of other people.
Oh,
So,
yes.
well, and that's exactly what this is. It's like this is a big star power. Like there's a lot of really famous people in this and really talented actors in that, right? Too, because like I'm a huge Paul Newman and William
Hmm.
Holden fan.
Yeah.
So seeing both them in this film, and I feel like him being William Holden probably also helps with the fact that like, oh, maybe we could forgive this guy,
Yep.
even
Yep.
though like maybe we shouldn't. Um,
I
kind of
really
thing.
liked I really liked O.J. Simpson. I really hope this guy never murdered anybody. That'd be such a shame. Like the young
It'd
O.J.
be such
Simpson.
a shame if this guy turned out to be not a great person,
Yes. Like
and you all
I
can see us staring at the camera knowingly, breaking the fourth wall. But well, let's get on to our other disaster movie here, which is Airplane. I mean Airport. Um, because this totally is not Airplane. This is not
hmm
a parody. This is from 1970. This is 2 hours and 17 minutes, but
hmm
still felt longer.
Yeah.
Than the Towering Inferno. A bomber on board an airplane almost closed by snow, and various personnel problems of the people involved.
hmm
And come back in 10 minutes when I'm done reading the cast of this movie.
Yep.
Um, we got Burt Lancaster, Dean Martin, Gene Seberg, who I think this was the first time I ever actually saw her in a movie. Jacqueline Bisset, George Kennedy, Helen Hayes, Van Heflin, Maureen Stapleton, Barry Nelson, and a lot of other character actors and familiar faces that you'll see pop up throughout this film.
hmm
So, Luke, tell me your general thoughts on Adultery at the Airport, the movie.
And the snow. Don't forget the snow.
The snow.
I thought this was fine. Like I struggled with this movie quite a bit because it's even though it's shorter than Towering Inferno, it feels longer. It feels much longer. And this is the prime example of like there is a way how to put people, like real life people dealing with real life issues in the middle of a catastrophe. And this was the way in 1970, and I get it. But it just like it like again technically a really good movie. Like I really like the editing and the cutting of like phone conversations. We had like the split screens or
Yeah.
sometimes even like a circles on a. And I thought that was inventive. That was very cool, especially for 1970.
Mhm.
But where the movie kind of falls apart is like there is a do we abort or do we not abort this baby, and like subplot, and I'm like, and that kind of gotten like resolved as a, oh yeah, given we all survived, it was meant to be, so like I made my decision, and I'm like, okay, we definitely needed that, yeah, 100%. We get to be like the old lady that was like traveling very cheaply
Yeah.
and won an Oscar for it, by the way. That's an Oscar winner.
Yep.
And I'm like, I get like it's kind of sweet. Did we need it? Probably not. It's kind of
Th-
sweet.
This is labeled as a dark comedy.
It was like it has many
Yeah.
comedic moments. That's true. But I'm like, before the actual anything like the plot related happens, we are like hour in, and I don't know whether
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but were you enjoying the ride before the actual plot kicks starts? That's my question.
I think I was sitting there thinking, what's the conflict here? Is it the
Mm.
snow? Like
It felt like
after
that,
a
didn't
while, I
it?
figured it was just the snow was the conflict,
It felt like
but
that, right?
no,
Yeah.
there's a bomb.
I was like, is there going to
But
be
it
like a
did.
plane approaching and they need to clean the runway as fast as possible because they're all the fucking snow? I was like, okay, this is a movie,
Because
cool.
that
And then a
that's a
bomb.
subplot,
Yes.
as it turns out, which felt like the plot for a while. But I was enjoying some of it.
Yeah.
Like the old lady shenanigans were fun for a while, but like it gets really repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Dean Martin storyline was a bridge too far because like I said, adultery at the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Like we I think the Burt Lancaster stuff was enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was enough like personal conflict to float this movie. Like I didn't know if we really needed Dean Martin and his side girlfriend, and
Mm-hmm.
then that moment where like he's because like she got dumped,
Yep. Oh yeah.
and him going out with her with the stretcher, and his wife being right there, you're just like, ugh,
Awkward.
awkward. Um, I had a lot of feelings about that, but I feel like the Burt Lancaster stuff was enough because there's layers to that too. Because he's having this troubled marriage, and damn, when his wife was like, "You didn't even notice that I've been like seeing somebody else," and it's just like, damn,
Mm-hmm.
that's rough.
And see, just before we continue, I'm just gonna say, if people think we're being too cruel, they should listen to Burt Lancaster himself. Have you heard what he said about this movie?
No,
So on top IMDb trivia. So despite the financial windfall, because he earned a lot on this movie because of like
I'm
all the
sure he did.
deals, yeah, Lancaster said that the movie was quote the worst piece of junk ever made end quote. He said he only made this film in return for the studio agreeing to finance several non-commercial films in which he was interested. Lancaster added it was a joke that this film was nominated for any awards at all. He absolutely despised this movie. So, like, if you think, people, for anybody listening to this, if you think we are being a bit too harsh, listen to the main star of the movie who actually profited the greatly off of it, how he didn't like it.
Wild, wild,
Yeah,
wild,
yeah,
wild. It's just, it's just like I get that was enough. Like that, and then he has this
yes.
relationship with this woman at the airport, and
Mm-hmm,
it's like, I don't want you to go. I'm gonna
mm-hmm,
take this job, this, that, or the other.
yeah,
That was enough. But
mm-hmm,
then they had the Dean Martin thing, and they had
mm-hmm,
other stuff.
mm-hmm,
And then of course you had the bomber.
yes,
Um, and his whole like tragic, like leading up to this situation. And like it gets tense at times, and you're
mm-hmm,
just like, oh no, like the world has failed this man, and this man's gonna take it out on the world,
yep,
and things are not gonna go well. And of course, you have the big moment on the plane,
mm-hmm,
and also I kind of feel like the whole plane part of this was convoluted, like just like
mm.
the air, like this old lady gets on the plane, and you have
Oh,
that, and then you have the bomber, and then you have
yeah,
this and that,
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
like,
I see, I
and then
see.
you have the whole entire subplot with which I thought this was going to be the conflict was George Kennedy and this plane that's stuck on the ground, which then
Yep,
it does become a subplot to the main plot because then
yep.
they have to get this plane out of the way for this other plane to land. And I'm just like, is it weird to say like this could have been like 100 minutes?
It's not
Like,
weird at all. It's not
no,
weird. You would be correct. Yes.
because like just think about how much shit they crammed in Airplane in 90 minutes. So like,
And that's my one of my points. That's why I'll always love this movie because you can clearly see where the Zaz trio took its massive inspiration, especially for the sequel. But even like there are hints of it in the original, like Airplane, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, where like everything is so dramatic, everything is like so sincere, and there's this dramatic music, and then this happens, and I'm like, oh, this is Airplane, this is Airplane, like the big scene where the entire all the people on the plane are like approaching the bomber, and he's like like that's literally shot for shot, like in Airplane, the sequel. And I'm like, but of course, at that time, in that movie, it's much funnier because like he had erectile dysfunction, so it's like nobody knows he can get it up. Ooh. And I just thought of that scene when they were like talking to him, like, it's not gonna work. Your scheme is not gonna work. The papers are invalid. And I was like, oh yeah, but nobody knows he can get it up is much funnier. And it fits this moment much better. I'll say this.
Well, and like I think Van Heflin really sold that character.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like good for Dean Martin because like is Dean Martin like was he an actor? Um he was a
I
singer
haven't seen
who
that
was in
many Dean
movies.
Martin movies to have an opinion, so I'll believe you.
Well, Ocean's 11 was just him and all of his friends hanging out. So like that was there wasn't any acting going on in that movie. It
Hmm.
felt like except for Cesar Romero, but besides that, um here like that was a big emotional moment. And
Hmm.
he was getting him off the proverbial ledge. And
Yep.
that dumb piece of crap who screamed out, "Get him ass from!" Like he ruined it.
Just again, people being, acting out of their own self-interest and like spoiling, the one person spoils it for all of them.
Yes.
Just, yep.
And like there are some like serious consequences and like you're half expecting the plane to split in half because they had the whole fissure in the top of the
Yeah.
plane. And I'm just like, holy crap.
And I was like, is it gonna go there? Like, I wanna see how that would look like in 1970. And then no, it just lands fine. And I'm like, that was a very smooth landing for a plane that just had a bomb blown on it, like, or
Mhm.
in it. I'm like, really? Like, I'm not an expert, but really, would it be that smooth? That felt kind of fucking smooth.
But like there's some good performances in this movie.
Yeah.
Like Burt Lancaster obviously did the work despite the fact that he thought this was trash.
Oh yeah.
Um and I love George Kennedy and
Oh yes.
he just brings a vibe. You got cigar chewing guy who works on all the planes and he's like, we're gonna throw this in overdrive.
Hmm.
And just like um
That's the one thing about 707 cannot do. Read. That was the line of the movie when they remind him, "Oh, that wasn't in the manual. The manual said to with a blow, tore this plane up." Yeah, that's the one thing this thing cannot do. Read. I'm like, that's
I
such
think
a
George
dad
Kennedy was my
line.
I think George Kennedy was my favorite part of this movie because
Yeah,
he was just like no shits to give. And
yeah,
he's the one calling everybody out for all of their like uh he's the one that like he's not gonna shut up. He's not
yep,
gonna keep his comments to himself.
yep.
He brought some energy to this movie. But and it's so interesting watching more of Burt Lancaster as a
Hmm.
younger man,
Hmm.
because growing up, all I knew him was from Field of Dreams, where he's like Moonlight Graham,
Hmm.
and like he's legit old man,
Yeah.
and like here, like he has that soft spokenness
Hmm.
about him, and he just brings some emotion to it, and I had fun with this. Is this like I think the at the end of the day, many of these disaster movies of the 70s just needed to be a little tighter,
Tighter. Yes.
tighter.
Like, yeah, I was yeah, like they were not like neither of these movies are bad, by any standard, right? Especially on a technical level, especially on the like acting level. Obviously, people knew what they were doing back then. It's the 70s. It's just the form, it's just the storytelling has changed so much where nowadays like you wouldn't make a movie like that for a reason. And unfortunately both of these kind of they haven't aged well in a way where the runtime is felt. Like some you watch some older movies and like 2 hours, 3 hours fly by, right?
Hmm.
And then you watch a movie that's 2 hours 15 and it feels like 4 hours 15. And I'm like, is it still, are we still going? Is this lady finally taken off in the first class? Like as the old lady was like, oh, I had a it was much more fun than my way, traveling. And can you imagine this, today? Can you imagine like you just, walking around in the airport and just waiting and just sneak in? And like, oh yeah, I'm just flying to Italy. Yeah, why not?
Well, this is complicated because post 9/11, you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
there's no way this will happen.
Yep.
But I don't know because there's like no employees at TSA anymore. So,
I wonder why.
so this is a very interesting and unfortunately topical movie, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
With some stuff that had been happening recently. But yeah, these are a couple of maybe over bloated, a little over long
A bit.
disaster movies that are still fun and are still
Yes.
both better Best Picture nominees than Amelia Perez. Um, just digging that one in there. I couldn't resist. But
Mm.
Luke, thank you so much as always for coming on and talking movies with me.
Anytime, Shane.
Next month we're gonna pour one out for our now deceased idol of film, David Lynch. We're gonna
Yes.
watch a couple of weird ass movies, Blue Velvet and Eraserhead, which is indeed
Mhm.
a weird ass movie.
Yep.
So well, they'll definitely be more interesting than this for sure. But thank all of you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your favorite disaster movie? What's your favorite from this era? And why is the Poseidon Adventure? Because that one definitely is the best one out of all of these. Um, Also, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We have a lot of new people getting involved here at the SPDM crew. Just ask Luke and I on our shows, Flicks and Chill and the Wasteland Watch List. A whole lot of new guests coming on, and also some new shows. If you're obsessed with Tolkien and can hold a conversation because you've read the Silmarillion like 5 times, you could go listen to Tolkien on Tap. I'm learning a lot, and I thought I was a Lord of the Rings fan. Um, and some other new shows coming your way as well with music and more movies. If you're sick of just listening to me talk about movies 5 times on five different shows. And also, if you like our logo, make sure to check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Retrospective here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.